Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ben Woestenburg, and this is BTC-TV Channel 13 in Vancouver, bringing you stories. Oh, what? I forgot. Stories after dark. My bad. So bad. Okay. Well, I tried. I almost made it, didn't I? Not even close. Okay, so tonight I'm going to be reading to you the final act of the African Songbook. It's apparently quite long here. Oh, yeah, I didn't number the pages. Let's hope I don't drop them. Anyways, there's about 28 pages, but I made a bigger font because I mean, I didn't want to wear my glasses. I'm going to try and not look down too much. I'm trying to figure out where I can put this where it won't fall too much. Oh, wow. Ridiculous here. I should have, I want to get one of those pedestal things. What they call pedestals on things. You know what the one I mean? So I can put my stuff on it because this sucks. All right, let's try. I'm going to read. I have two people, Mary and Leon. Thank you, guys. It didn't work that way either. I'm going to try, okay? This is the African Songbook, Act 5. Now, oh, hang on one second. I've already messed up because I read the first page and did that. My bad. In spite of the fact that the British won a clear military victory, Kenyans were granted nearly all of the demands made by the KAU back in 1951. In June 1956, a program of villagization and land reform consolidated the land holdings of the Kikuyu, increasing the number of Kikuyu allies within the colonial government. This was coupled with a relaxation of the ban preventing Africans from growing coffee, now a primary cash crop, which quickly led to a dramatic rise in the income of small farmers over the next 10 years. In the cities, the colonial authorities decided to dispel tensions after Operation Anvil by raising urban wages, which strengthened the hand of moderate union organizations. By 1956, the British had granted direct election of African members to the Legislative Assembly, followed shortly after that by an increase in the number of African seats to 14. A parliamentary conference held in January 1960 indicated that the British would accept a one-person, one-vote majority rule. These political measures became a means to end the instability caused by the uprising, appeasing Africans both in the cities and in the country, while encouraging the creation of a stable African middle class, which also required the abandonment of settler interests. This was possible because while the settlers dominated the colony politically, they owned less than 20% of the assets invested in Kenya. The remainder of Kenya's assets belonged to various corporations willing to deal with an African majority government as long as the security situation stabilized. The choice that the authorities in London faced was one between an unstable colony, which was costing a fortune in military expenses, run by settlers who contributed little to the economic growth of the empire, or a stable colony run by Africans that contributed to the coffers of the empire. The latter option was taken. Act 5, Scene 1. 3 September 1954, the Rift Valley, Kenya. As dawn came up on the third day out of Mozambique, Thandi allowed herself a moment of reflection. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, knowing she had to control her feelings. Breaking down now would be the worst thing she could do. She looked at Sam sleeping with his face pressed up against the side window and stared out at the rising sun, gilding the landscape in front of her. There was game about, She saw giraffes and marveled at their silhouettes moving about as if they were stick animals in a puppet show. She smiled to herself. She needed time alone to reach into herself so she could find the strength to go on. Too many times since they'd left, she'd wanted to turn back, afraid of what lay ahead, and almost willing to accept what was behind her. What kind of person is willing to sacrifice the man she says she loves? What kind of a person does that make me thinking like that? The night they left, she felt full of apprehension. She'd packed a small bag, bringing clothes for Daniel as well as herself, but her fears of what could go wrong weighed heavily on her mind, and she had to sit on her cot to collect her thoughts. Her hands shook even as they shook now, and she wondered if it was fear of where she had come from or fear of where she was going. She would have taken the train from Nairobi. She should have taken the train from Nairobi, but there was a riot in the city and the crowd at the station terrified her as she tried to purchase her tickets. She meant to buy two, but there were too many soldiers and too much confusion, so she left. She had to leave. Large crowds frightened her of late. The very people she so righteously supported now frightened her, with her never knowing who was dead and who wasn't as they lay in the streets, on the sidewalks, and in the alleys. They looked to be a defeated people full of hatred, and all the while she was wondering who, if any in that crowd of rioters near the station, were Mau Mau supporters. At first she thought there'd be little difficulty in leaving Nairobi, but the next day the railroad union called a strike and the trains came to a halt. They didn't run for a week. When Nigel said he was flying up to the plantation, he begged her to come because Natasha and Elizabeth needed her. Sandy agreed on the understanding that he'd have someone drive her to Lesetima. Nigel said Tommy Omumu would drive her within the week, and for some reason she hesitated at the idea of making the trip with with him. So she went with Sam instead, him thinking it was a great adventure, no doubt influenced by something out of a fantasy novel he'd read, while she held on to the door of the Land Rover, fearing for her life at every turn. Leaving in the still of the night with nothing more than a set of headlights, and a full moon to light their way, she closed her eyes and let the road lull her to sleep. She was exhausted. The weeks leading up to the night had finally taken their toll on her. She knew she'd never breathe easy again until she knew for certain, one way or the other, that Daniel was safe. Looking out at the rising sun, she found it hard to believe that she wouldn't find him alive, that she would find him waiting for her with a certain degree of expectancy, and all the while wondering at his betrayal. It's easier to believe in love. She watched the sun breaking across the savannah, her mind a million miles away as she traced the months and months of effort it took to finally track him down. She found herself being befriended by Natasha in the year since Daniel's arrest. It was Natasha who discovered which camp Daniel was in. Out of the ashes of a love betrayed, Sandy thought and felt there was still hope for her and Daniel. As long as I pray for him. Daniel's arrest and detention in one of the camps to the south devastated Natasha. She felt responsible for what Nigel had done. Sandy felt convinced that Nigel had deceived them all. She saw she saw what he was like. She saw to what ends he would go. His secret okay for the loyalist retaliation against the Mau Mau sympathizers at Larry made him responsible for 150 deaths. She knew this secret as a member of the passive wing, but the passive wing was gone now, with his name on the document calling for the arrest of innocent men and women along with everyone else. But why, she kept asking herself, why? Natasha provided her with the answer. When Nigel's mother died, you do know she hanged herself, right? I wasn't sure if you'd heard, but it was Nigel who found her, she said. They were sitting outside on the veranda. The night was cool, overcast. The mosquito netting made it as if they were looking through a gauze curtain at the clouds skirting along the sky, the stars poking out between them as if tiny beacons on a distant shore. A breeze came down from Lake Rudolph, the Jade Sea, and Natasha shivered, pulling the wrap around her shoulders tighter. He's never told anyone else about that day, and it frightens me to the very core just thinking about it, but he was sent to boarding school shortly after, and I think he feels he was being punished because I think she was still alive when he found her. I don't know if she was. I doubt if he realized it at the time. Bad enough being haunted just by that idea. I found her. She's dead. He never fully understood, and then the war came along, and when it did, right? How do you get out of something like that when you're sick, when you're stuck in the middle of it? You don't. So he volunteered. It was a long war, and before you knew it, he was never able to explain himself. I guess that's the kind of thing you can only understand in hindsight, but it's haunted him ever since. I know that. They might have saved her had he said something. And when he got here, it was as if Daniel had taken his place in his father's mind as much as he had in his heart. You could almost feel sorry for him if he hadn't acted the way he did. I suppose that in his own strange way it makes sense. Do I want to believe it? She thought. Yes. It made so much more sense now that there was a reason, but it made seeing Nigel for the proper government papers that much more difficult, and the flight to the plantation with him almost unbearable. Scene 2. The drive through the rift had been frightening. Too many times she thought they might become stuck or that the Land Rover would tip over or break down in the middle of nowhere. Sam drove over cliffs he called hills, and the Rover sliding left and right as he tried gearing down, a look of panic crossing his face that made her gasp. And she screamed just as he screamed along with her, but his screams were a mockery of hers, with him laughing at the bottom of the as the bumper hit the dirt and dug up the hard ground. He was slow to find first gear. Then he popped the clutch and lurched ahead, sputtering across the vista with a cloud of blue smoke behind him. It was a 400-kilometer journey from the plantation to Lesetima, something they should have been able to do in a day had they followed the rudimentary roads. Sam kept the game trails that seemed to take them in the opposite directions, always saying that everything was fine and that they had to keep to the high ground because he didn't want the chance of getting stuck in the mud. Besides, he added, they were less likely to run into anyone on game trails, Kikuyu guardsmen or rebels. At the end of the first day, they stopped outside Marahai. Sam filled up the gas tank from 3 of the 6 extra cans he brought, and she was thankful that he'd thought about it because she hadn't. She hadn't thought about a lot of things, just Daniel. Raralau was a village of 10 dome-shaped huts made of scrub brush. A single dust path led through the center of the village with less than a dozen chickens scattering at their approach. Sandy couldn't help staring at the people standing on the side of the road as they passed, each of them with a look of hatred that seemed to burn from within. It's me they hate, Sam said to her. You? I'm the wrong color. I've seen that look lots of times back in Nairobi. But why would these people hate you? They're unaffected by anything going on around them. You don't really believe that, do you? She looked in the side mirror at the retreating village, wondering what hope there was for a country that understood nothing but how to hate. They found a small road that was little more than a path leading into the hills. Sam looked at the map he had stuffed in beside the seat, looking down as he read and looking up occasionally to make certain he was still on the path. He glanced at her and smiled. Next stop, we won't stop actually, Kasima, and then on to Nyahurahura. That's what it says. She was beginning to think maybe Sam wasn't as much of a dreamer as she thought he was. When they stopped because he said he was tired and needed to rest, she discovered that one of the gas tanks actually had water. She never thought water could taste as good as it did at that moment. She remembered how Daniel always said that a man couldn't afford to drive about Whitney Estates without water or a rifle. She looked in the back seat and saw the 303 lying across the seat, along with binoculars and a bag of food. You brought food? Of course. What did you think I was doing when I went up to pack? I remembered everything Daniel ever told me about leaving the estate for the night. I brought food and water, a rifle, binoculars, first aid kit, gas. I even brought money. Money? Where did you get that? I took it out of Dad's wallet when he was sleeping. Why did you think we'd need money? How else do you think we're going to get in to see Daniel? We'll probably have to bribe someone. How much did you bring? Everything he had, and everything I saved up as well. Grandpa's always giving us money. So how much is there? About 500 shillings. Scene 3. They arrived at Nyahurahura just as the sun was going down, passing through the village without stopping or slowing down. It lay 50 kilometers from the detention camp. Rather than parking the Land Rover near the village, and they really were villages, she thought, not the towns the map said they were, they parked on a lone bluff overlooking the rift and ate what little food they had left. She smiled to herself as she looked over at Sam sleeping beside her. His idea of food consisted of everything he liked: cookies, cake, peanut butter sandwiches, and fruit. She would have liked something a little more substantial. Sam woke up and stretched slowly, smiling at her. I wish I brought my toothpaste, he said with a sheepish grin. Scene 4. Almost as soon as they were on the road to Lesetima, they came across a small patrol of Kuyu guardsmen. Sandy was quick to bring out her pass, watching nervously as one of the soldiers looked at it. He turned to his comrades, and there were nods and a discussion as one of the soldiers finally went to the truck where he spoke into the radio. That was when she realized the soldier wasn't reading the pass. He couldn't read. She smiled politely as he approached and quickly explained that the pass had come from the governor's office in Nairobi. She was on official state business. The man knit his brows as he handed the pass to her, looking at the soldiers talking into the radio, who nodded. The man looked at Sam, staring at the road ahead of him. He looked into the back of the Land Rover, shielding his eyes against the glare of the window. Are you here for the quarantine? He asked when he saw the medical kit. Quarantine? There's been a cholera outbreak. I hear it's very bad, many deaths. No, we've come from Nairobi, she said, and seeing Sam about to say something, put her hand on his knee. Why is the boy driving? The soldier asked, changing the subject. Because I don't drive and no one else would chance it. They were afraid of the rebels. He volunteered to take me. The rebels are to the south, near Niria. It's Kimati. Do you know him? She shook her head. Should I? He's the last of the rebel leaders. It's only a matter of time before we capture him. I don't see how you avoided them, or our patrols coming from Nairobi, as you say. We just did, she said with a shrug and a smile. She breathed a huge sigh of relief when the guards let them go on, and waited until their truck was out of sight before she looked at Sam, who turned to her with a smile. Scene 5. The first thing she noticed as they approached the camp was the smell. She rolled her window up, thinking that would keep it out. It didn't. She held back a gag, pressing her hand to her mouth. She found a small handkerchief in the glove box and quickly covered her nose with it, almost certain she'd be sick. She looked up at the sky, saw a collection of carrion birds circling overhead, and voiced a silent prayer. That must be mean when they say, that must be what they mean by a murder of crows. We must be getting closer, Sam said, noticing the birds at the same time. He was covering his mouth with his hand. There was a small guard shack off to the right, and they stopped once more. Sandy held her pass out to the guard, moving the handkerchief long enough to say that she needed to talk to whoever was in charge. Guard looked at the pass and then went into the shack where he picked up a telephone receiver. She could see him on the telephone looking up the hill, and followed his gaze, not seeing anything. There was a haze of smoke farther up, and she wondered if they were burning the bodies. At last, the man hung up the phone and came back to the Land Rover, returning the pass to her. I'm sure you're aware the camp's in quarantine, but they say it's safe enough for you to go up. If you follow the road, you'll come to a small camp just over the rise. That's where the doctors are. Someone will meet you. She nodded and quickly rolling the window up thanked him with a smile. Sam released the clutch and the Land Rover rolled back several feet before he put it in gear. The guard stood aside patiently and the truck lurched ahead, leapfrogging up the hill and leaving a cloud of blue smoke behind. You'd think you'd get better as we went along, she said with a smile. As they crested the rise, Sandy saw the doctor's camp. There were guards standing about with machine guns, and half a dozen trucks pulled out of the left side of the road. It was a collection of large military tents, the red crosses on them worn and faded, with small fires smoldering in front of a half dozen of the tents. A miasma of smoke hanging over the camp as though it were a funeral pyre. A dozen ambulances stood on the opposite side of the road, the red crosses on the side panels brown with age, the white circles streaked with dirt. Sandy told Sam to pull in behind the ambulances and quickly opened the door. Wait here, she said, putting the rag over her mouth, afraid she was going to gag as she slammed the door shut behind her. There were 16 doctors in all, as well as 14 nurses, all of them dressed in dirty coveralls, wearing heavy mud-caked boots. One of the doctors, a tall, heavy-set white man wearing a surgical mask with a stethoscope hanging around his neck, had black horn-rimmed glasses that flashed at her in the morning light. He waited as she approached. I'm Dr. Jepson. You here from Nairobi, he asked. The IRC? If you are, we were expecting you days ago. She shook her head. I'm looking for someone, she said, speaking through the rag and handing him her pass. You're looking for someone. I can't help you with that, he said with a shake of his head as he handed the pass back and turned away. We're dealing with a cholera outbreak. Come on, keep up. And the big camp's under quarantine. I don't have time to go around looking for any one person, and to be quite honest, I wouldn't know where to start. But you're free to look around if you want. They were walking towards one of the large tents, and Sandy was tripping over her boots, the mud a huge weight. The ground sucked at her boots. She could feel it caressing her calves at times. It hurt her thighs with the effort to follow. I thought you said the camp was under quarantine. The main camp is, but that's because we don't want it spreading any further than it already has. It's cholera, not the plague. You can't get it. You can't get sick by coming into contact with a cholera patient. That's not how it works. As long as you don't drink any untreated water and you wash your hands before you eat, you'll be fine. Cholera is all about hygiene, of which these people know nothing. What happened? Sandy asked. What happened? Look, you can't have people living in squalid conditions like this and not expect to have disease. Right now, it's contained, and we want to keep it that way. We bring in the ones who show symptoms and do what we can for them. We try to keep them hydrated, but our resources are limited. We only have 100 beds. Luckily, it's a disease we can control once it's isolated. Is there a registry? He stopped outside a large tent, looking down at her and shaking his head. This isn't a hotel. I suppose there is some sort of system in place before for keeping track of who's who, but since this, things have become a little more confused. He opened the door of the tent and moved aside, letting Sandy walk in ahead of him. The tent was larger than any she'd ever been in before, well lit and orderly, with more than 20 patients inside laying on cots lined with plastic tarps and large 5-gallon buckets under the cots. Several of the beds were empty, and she saw how each cot had a hole in the center where the patient's effluent drained into the buckets. The first thing that struck her was the smell: vomit, feces, urine, and she felt an overwhelming sense of revulsion. You have 5 of these tents? He nodded. She looked at the emaciated figures of the detainees who appeared as little more than shadow puppets on the cots. They looked like the stick men Elizabeth used to draw, and she wondered if Daniel was among them. Most of these people will probably die. We don't get to them if we don't get them properly hydrated within a day or two, there's not much we can do for them. They lose about 5 liters of liquid a day, and if we can't replace it quick enough, we move them to another tent. We call it St. Jude's. St. Jude's, patron saint of lost causes. Scene 6. After being in the camp hospital several hours, Sandy told herself she was used to the sights and smells. It was the sounds of emptying bowels she found disturbing. The first time she heard it, she was afraid she might be ill, but found herself watching anyway, a sense of morbid fascination gripping her as the liquid drained into the bucket under the cot. That explains the plastic sheets. She told Sam he could either wait in the Land Rover while she searched for Daniel, or he could help her. She warned him that it was a hospital. The patients were dying of cholera, and he might not like what he saw. How bad can it be? He asked. Sandy smiled and hugged him close to her. I wasn't expecting this. I don't know what I was expecting, but certainly not this. I know I have to accept that he might not be alive, and so do you, okay? That doesn't mean he isn't alive. We have to believe he is. It's just that if we don't find him here, that means he's still up in one of the main camps, and we have to hold on to that hope. She let go and looked at Sam closely as he tried to smile, but she could see he was forcing himself. We have to believe he's alive, okay? She said. Okay. By the end of the day, they were exhausted. Dr. Jepson offered both of them food and water as well as a cot in one of the small tents. As exhausted as he was, Sandy found it as she was, Sandy found it impossible to sleep and stepped outside. She found a small bucket to sit on. She watched soldiers in an endless parade of stretchers coming down the hill again, empty, and she wondered what time they started bringing the bodies down in the morning. And how many will die? She looked across the way to the other larger tent, St. Jude's, and told herself she didn't want to go there. It would be the same as admitting defeat, knowing the patients who went in there to die. Lost causes. Scene 7. She found Daniel on the third day as two soldiers carried him out of a smaller tent and made their way to St. Jude's. She only caught sight of him for a moment. He lay on a stretcher, his head flopping from side to side as the soldiers stopped to open the doors. It was the same moment Sandy stood up, stretching to ease the pain in her back. She looked at Sam across the tent. Sam, she called out, running out of the tent and standing in the muddy yard watching the soldiers enter St. Jude's with the stretcher. Sam turned as he heard his name and saw Sandy running outside. He stood unmoving for a moment as he realized why she was running. He followed a moment later and saw her peering inside St. Jude's before turning to look at him, looking as if she wished she'd made a mistake, that the man inside was not Daniel. Sam ran across the yard as Sandy stumbled back against the door of the tent. Losing her balance, she fell against the side of the tent. She slid to the ground before Sam caught her, and she let him hold on to her as she cried into her hands. Please, please, she whispered as she pressed herself against him. Don't let him die, not now, not like this. And then she steeled herself suddenly. You hold on for me, Daniel. Oh, God, don't let him die. This is not how it's supposed to end. She forced herself to go on, stood up, and went inside, willing herself to be strong. That's what he'll expect from me, telling herself she had to be strong, or she wouldn't be able to go on. Are we too late? Sam asked. I don't know, she said at last. Tell me he's going to be all right, Sam said, wiping his nose with his sleeve. A part of her wanted to cry out, and another part of her wanted to hold him because she could feel the pain in his heart. And then she looked down at Daniel. Tell me we're not too late, Sam said again. I said I don't know, she snapped, and Sam fell silent. Sitting on a small bench and trying to regain his composure, she watched him as he wept. Even he could see it isn't going to happen. She reached for Daniel's hand, feeling for his pulse. It felt slow and weak. She kissed his hands, holding them to her cheeks. His skin felt cold to her touch. Please, Daniel, say something. Tell me you want to live. Show me that you want to live. I'm sorry, Sandy, he said in a whisper. I can't. She put her head to his chest, listening to his heartbeat, and heard it falter. One moment it was there, and the next moment it was gone, like a shadow or a whisper, and she looked up at Sam with tears in her eyes. She shook her head slowly. And Sam cocked his head. Is he? She nodded. Scene 8. The wind came down from the mountains, whipping the tent flaps, and Fandy shivered as she watched the sun sink behind Mount Elgon to the west. Her soul was empty, her heart dry and sere. She could taste dust in the air. She turned, looking at the tent where Daniel's body had lain before the soldiers buried him in the common grave. A part of her died with him, she knew that. A large part. It would take time for her to heal. It was something she'd heard other people saying at different times in her life, and she thought, as she was sure others had thought before her, that nothing would take the pain away. The wind picked up and she shivered, turned away from the cold, and saw the doctor walking towards her. He looked a mess. He popped his mask on top of his head, wiping the sweat from around his mouth. His unshaven cheeks were black with stubble, his sunken, red-rimmed eyes magnified behind his glasses. He stood beside her as he pulled out a cigarette, lighting it and enjoying the taste of it as he watched the sun go down. "We're sorry about your friend," he said at last. "He should have never been here. None of them should be here," the man sighed. "Victims of circumstance. That's all anybody in this place is. That's all anybody is in a place like this. All of us. You never do, though. You never do enough." "Do you believe that?" she asked, a note of bitterness creeping into her voice. "It's all you have left after a while," he said, looking down at her and searching her face. "The man you were looking for. Was he a relative, or did you love him?" "I loved him with all my heart," she said at last, tears flooding her eyes. The man nodded. "Do you think it was enough just to love him? Do you think you can ever love someone enough?" "I don't think it's possible," he said with a slow shake of his head. "Not until it's too late." He threw the cigarette into the mud, grinding it down with his foot as he looked at her and snapped his mask back into place. "I still have more to do here," he said, walking back towards the tent, "and miles to go before I sleep." Well, there you go. Oh, look at that. I have more people. Thank you, people. That's it. I finished it. How? Oh my goodness, that took a lot longer than I thought. Half an hour. That's the perfect time. So does anybody have any questions? That's the end of that story. I have to come up with not come up with a new one. I have to choose a new one to read. And I'm thinking it's going to be a long one. I'm thinking it's going to be The Dawn Patrol because I like The Dawn Patrol. Would you like me to tell you a little bit about it? Well, you don't have a choice. So The Dawn Patrol, I don't even know what year I wrote it. A long time ago. But I wrote it I wrote it in the past and I wrote it in the present. And the present is 1998 and the past is 1945-ish, around there. And so there's a big secret in this family, and the new generation don't know what it is, and the old generation has just buried it, and nobody talks about it. But it's a big secret, and the father of the two boys in the story has a stroke and is hospitalized, and he's in a coma, but he's awake. He's in a coma. His mind is working, and his mind is screaming at him, and he's remembering what happened and everything that went wrong. So it's a novella, and I think it's about 50,000 words. I could be. I don't really know offhand. I could search for it, but why would I should have these things prepared. I should know what these. I should know what it is. But hey, whatever. It is what it is. And at the moment, I am still writing my story, The Revolutionary, His Wife and Her Lover. And I think I have, at the moment, that's not it. And that's not it. And neither is that. I don't even know where the hell it is anymore. I lost it again. I do that a lot. Apparently, I've misplaced it. Yeah, I think I have about 5,000 words. Not very much. Not very well. Well, it's hard to write when the wife has the day off, and we had kids over for dinner, so we were getting shit done, making stuff, and I can't let her be in the kitchen and not do my share. Like, come on. So I have dishpan hands. That's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind dishpan hand because I remember the alternative. This is much nicer and warmer. Not that it was cold. It was gorgeous. Very nice. Well, actually, let me say it was very nice yesterday. Then I woke up this morning and it was raining again. I thought, what the, what's the word I'm looking for? What the heck? What the hell? Sorry, I do that. Anyways, I can't hang around for too much longer. How long has this been? 35 minutes. I go 40 minutes. Yeah, so let me tell you a bit about the revolutionary wife and lover and all that stuff like that. Um, because it's it deals with the revolutionary comes to terms with himself and realizes that he's somewhat changed his allegiance to what he used to believe in to now following the National Socialist Democratic Party, which is the forerunner of the Nazis, right? It's the Nazi party, and it's 1920s, and so like early, like 1921. So he's changing his allegiance, and that's the crux of the whole problem with him. And her problem is, I believe, she's going to tell the guy in the next 200 words or whatever it is that she thinks she's pregnant. But I have to find a humorous way to do it. So I thought maybe she would say something like that I'm late, and he'd say, "Late for what? Like where are you going?" And then she'd say, "Well, I missed one," and then he's like, "Missed a what? Like what are you talking about?" Then when she finally says the P word, when she says she missed her period, that's when he says, "What does that mean?" And that's when we find out what we all know already. But that's when it comes out to him, because he's not exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer, is he? So then it's then I mean, because all of this isn't written. This is where I'm thinking it should go. Okay, this is where I'm thinking it should go. It should go along the lines that she has to now decide, because now she has a child. She has to decide what kind of world she wants to raise that child in, and so now she starts paying attention to her revolutionary husband and to what it is that he's been doing. And she has to come to her own conclusions on what she's going to do. And I think that's going to be the crux of the issue. Oh yeah, the complications of the lover and all, so like all that stuff, like layer upon layer upon layer, complications and issues and things like that. Always ask yourself, what if? I should start a writing class, the what if writing class. When you're writing a story, this is how it goes for me. Okay, not anybody else. This is how it goes for me. So when I'm writing a story, like for instance this one, and I thought, what can I do that's going to make it like an aha moment, just to get the story started, because you have to do something that's interesting. And so that's when I said, well, what if, and she is married, right? What if she's pregnant? And then I thought, well, what if she's pregnant, but it's not her husband's baby? Then it's like, yeah, then it keeps going on. And then it's like, well, what if she finds out that, now he's a Nazi? And, just what if? And what if she gets caught up in a riot? And what if which is like the beginning of the thingy, right? It turns into kind of almost what she thinks will be a riot. I don't know. It's I like it. It's interesting. It keeps me on my toes, keeps me entertained, lets me do a little bit of research into it, figure things out. It's it's an interesting time when questions were answered by assassinations and beatings. It's the start of the brown shirts just starting. They were just formed, and other factions like the Fried Corps, who were old veteran soldiers from the war who still have guns. Interesting. It's an interesting time. It's 100 years ago, man. Oh wait, you wouldn't even think time has passed, would you? Pretty sad. And I don't mean to do it as a reflection of that. It's like, no, not at all. Just seems it was a good story. The story was figured out long before, not figured out, but thought of long before this ever happened. The title I came up with this title about 8 years ago. I just didn't know how to do it yet. Then I just kind of figured things out because I found Cinderella and her sisters, and I was able to figure that out. And it's like, okay, I can tie them all in perfectly, and it all works out perfectly. I think I might even have to bring Count Novak in. Interesting. He'll be the uh, he'll be the link to all three stories. That being the Bashful Courtesan, Cinderella and her sisters, and now this one. Yeah. I can see it now. It's like interesting. Oh, hello, Simon's here. I'm sorry, Simon. I'm almost ready to be packing off. I think I want to make these an hour, but can I talk for 42 minutes? Yes, I can. I know I can. My wife certainly knows I can, and I can still give ideas, but the story that I want to work on because I don't write with a plot, because I just freewheel it. But I'm always thinking of it. Like tonight, I was doing dishes. I don't mind doing dishes because it's like my mind wanders a lot when I do dishes, and that's why I come up with plot twists and turns and yeah. Not that I believe in coincidence in stories too much. I mean, I'll put it in, but circumstances, it's like it's got to. It's like you don't want to make it cliche. Sorry, I have to keep my head in the screen. There we go. It has a line, as you well know, some of you. Anyways, so yeah, so the story, the revolutionary, his wife and her lover. I came up with that title a long time ago because there was a movie and it was called uh the 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 thief, the cook and his the thief, the cook and his wife. And it was a really weird movie. But I liked the idea of the three things, like the three storylines that you could tie together. So that's where I came up with the revolutionary guy and the wife and the lover. And the lover is he's a questionable person too. So yeah, I have three people that I can work on, and we'll see how that goes. Interesting premise, but oh, still another 15 minutes to go. Okay. Um. So I've trying to figure out how to use my what do you call it, animation thing, AI stuff. But I picked up a couple of things and I've been looking at it, waiting for money so that I can pay for it. And I thought that I wanted to try and make a correspondence between a soldier and his wife. So then I got like 5 letters or whatever, and I want to put these letters and I want to make them into a kind of a movie thing, like a documentary type whatever you wanna call it, vignettes and stuff so that I can put it on my TV station so that I can have entertainment when I make a movie, I guess you'd call it, just reading letters. But, I gotta figure out how to do all of that first. So, uh, I've started to work on it, but it's so easy to get lost into it, lost. But I asked ChatGPT to help me, to tell me what to do because I don't know exactly what to do. So it like I said, "Can you show me or tell me what it is I need to do in order to do this?" And it said, "Yeah." Well, it said. And so it gave me, a step-by-step directions that I could print out and I could look at it. It's like, "Okay, I can, try to figure all of this out." Of course, like, it can be wrong. Nobody ever reads the fine print right on the bottom. We're not perfect, so don't be asking us any medical questions. I don't think I wanna be asking you how to, hook up my defibrillator, but I don't have one. Yeah, I guess you'd use the washing machine, huh? Okay. Oh, I moved my microphone. I got a new microphone. Oh, I told you that. That's okay. I'm babbling again. I'm babbling. What else am I going to do? Oh yes, I have a play, I have a play. And, and the play is, I'm writing it. Oh, wow, I'm such a nerd. Writing it in iambic pentameter, with blank verse, iambic pentameter, mm, because I like the challenge of it. The play takes place in the towards the end of the Second World War, and it deals with, Richard Strauss, who is the, German composer, the guy that wrote the theme to 2001, in case you didn't know. Das Spacht Zarathustra. Yeah, something like that. Tone poem. Yeah, so I'm writing it about him because the thing that fascinates me is the fact that his daughter-in-law was Jewish or half Jewish, one or the other. I think it was half Jewish, more than enough to get her in hot water. And he protected her throughout the entire war and did everything that he could to make sure that her and the children were safe. And so then, as a result of him doing that, he gets cast as a bad guy, that he's a collaborator, and now he has to prove that he wasn't. And yeah, I want to do that. I've got, and so then that's the setting up of it. It's the setting up of it that I really like because it's just me thinking of how to do a stage play, having never, not even a clue as to how to do it, but I can visualize it in my mind's eye, and I can just write that down because it works. Because when it starts off, there's a there's a guy, and I call him. In fact, the name of the play is Kapellmeister Strauss or something like that. No, the Kapellmeister. The Kapellmeister is the narrator of the story. So he sits down and he's introducing the story and he's like a Greek chorus even. And but he also plays different characters throughout the entire play. So if you're an actor and you're acting this play, like you are on stage constantly. You do the Kapellmeister, and then you go from the Kapellmeister to a guy named, DeLacy. He's, his father from the guy from Q from, Star Trek Star War what's that called? Star Trek: The Next Generation, something like that, yeah, Q. Yeah, his father was the guy that, was dealing with, Richard Strauss. Interesting little sidebar there. Sorry, I got distracted. I'm gonna go over the hour. Uh, so, the Kapellmeister plays the Kapellmeister, then he plays Delancey, then he goes from Delancey, and then he plays Himmler, and he goes from Himmler, and then he plays Strauss's son, and then he goes from Strauss's son, and in between he's being the Kapellmeister getting changed, and all he has is a coat rack and and a box with different hats and a couple of pair of shoes that he changes, and that's basically it. And he just changes his coats, his uniforms, and things like that, and he goes through the entire play. And yeah, I've got one act of it so far. I'm acting a little bit, but yeah, that's another little project that I have off to the side because everybody has one of those, don't they? Well, if you're English, you might, because then you would think you want to be all over Goldsmith. You want to have a book, a play, and a poem, and I have all three. Not the book that I want, though. I mean, the one that I wrote, I love. I mean, like, yeah, the Shield of Locks, like, cool. It's really cool. I like it because it's my take. But I also I want to do my magnum opus, I call it, and that is called the Apocryphy, and that's a tale of the Christ, as they say. It it uses the Annals of Imperial Rome by Tacitus, and it uses the Acts of the Apostles by Luke, and then it uses me. I weave my fiction through those two stories and follow the storylines in both books. So with Tacitus, we meet a man by the name of Asiaticus, and he is arrested, and that is a conspiracy against him by the Empress Messalina because she wants his gardens. And so then he gets cast into prison, and at the same time, there's a young poet by the name of Lucipides who has written a satirical poem about the emperor, and he gets caught out and thrown into prison as a result of this. And in prison, he meets this man named Asiaticus. And in the meantime, there's a man named Narcissus who is a secretary to the emperor. I can't remember what the office is for. Don't. It's no test. And he wants to find this poet, and he also has to, he doesn't realize these two guys. He was looking for this poet to try and help him before he got arrested. So then now he finds out that he's arrested and that he's in with the Asiaticus. Uh, he feels much better, and he knows that he can get him out. He can free him or whatever it is. And so then, while they're in prison while he's in prison with Asiaticus, Asiaticus cuts a deal with him. Asiaticus has a fortune in money that is hidden in a bank in Jerusalem, and he has to go and find it. And with his daughter, um, uh, Lavinia, who is married to the bad guy, Praetonius. So this is like just the opening little bit. This is my story, and I want to expand upon it. I've written it three different times, each time over 200,000 words. It's like, I have to cut down a bit, but I figured doing it here as a serial would be like unbelievable. I'd be because of the freedom that it gives me. It's like, unbelievable for me. Not that it would be an unbelievable book. Well, that too, but, but I mean, it's just, Simon can relate. It's the freedom in which, but I don't want to write 3 million words, but I could write easily 600, 700,000 words quite easily. I don't have an issue with that. And being on this allows you that freedom. And that's what I love about it. That's why I write novellas. That's why the Revolutionary Wife and Lover and all that stuff. It's, I'm looking at 35,000 minimum because that's what I want. So it gives me 10,000 each character to flesh it out, and 5,000 to take care of the background shit, the stuff, you know, the subplots, the layering, because I love to layer my stories, and and the fact that I've got a couple of weeks left on the other one, so I got a couple of weeks to flesh out the beginnings of this story and make it work. And then and I'm retired. So, I have all day if I want. I can write for the entire day. I don't because I do a lot of playing around and screwing around and all of that stuff. And so now I'm going to uh I'm going to become a creative again. Oh, look at that. It's 5 minutes left. So I can say adieu. And I'm going to hear you ready for my spiel now. Thank you for watching Stories After Dark. I'm your host, Ben Woestenburg, and this has been a production of BTC-TV Channel 13 in Vancouver. We hope you have enjoyed it, and we will see you again next week. Thank you, and good night.